Hey guys, it's Mr. The Wow Factor here. I'm bringing you some Battlefield 4 gameplay today, alongside a review of the AEK-971. It's an assault rifle in Battlefield 4. It's the first one on the list when you head on to simfic.com. I recommend this website for all of your Battlefield, not only Battlefield 4, but previous games and some Call of Duty games as well. There are lots of stats on this website, the link will be in the description. But yeah, this is where I'm getting the weapon chart from, and that's where most of my stats are going to come from. So, starting with the iron sights now, I don't like them honestly. They're very hard to look through, they're very minimalistic, and whilst there isn't much of the iron sight itself, it seems like it would be very accurate, but it blocks off a lot of your view, in all honesty, and it doesn't really appear like it would. But when you're in the middle of a gunfight, you often lose your target because the actual hole that you're looking through is just so small, but it blocks off just that little bit around it that you really need to see. Now, I've got the clip in the background showing you how it looks, and as you can see, it's really not all that good, and especially with the recoil that the weapon has. I'll get into that later, but it just makes it very hard to do anything. Now, as you can see, I've equipped fully all of the attachments that I would use, and again, I get into them later in the video, but I equip all of the attachments that I use, including the sight, that being a red dot sight, and you can see how much easier the weapon is to control, and how much clearer it is to see what you're shooting at. Now, I show the bullet spread as well by shooting those concrete panel things behind the targets. Now, firstly, I do it with no attachments on and the iron sights, and I show you the difference between aiming down this sight and hip fire bullet spread. And as you can see, with the hip fire and aiming down the sight with no attachments, it's very, very high, and it spreads quite a way, and it rises a lot, and it's really not that accurate. So as a weapon, personally, I would certainly make sure that you use attachments and things like the barrel attachments and the grips, just to make sure that the weapon is controllable and it's actually usable. With all the attachments and the sight included, I again show you the bullet spread on these concrete panels, and as you can see, it's much less. It's really a lot more accurate, and it goes where you need it to go. And it looks like, in one of the shots, it looks like it climbs a lot more, but that's because it just touches the bottom of a certain part and then that breaks. But as you can see, with the majority of them, the spread is significantly less, and it's much more of an accurate weapon. So it has a staggering rounds per minute of 900. It's not the quickest in the assault rifle category, but it's certainly very, very quick, and it's got a lot of recoil alongside with that. It's got 0.15 pull to the left, it's got 0.4 to the right, so as you can see already, it's starting to head to the right more than the left, so it's starting to get off balance right off the bat, and it's got a 0.38 recoil going up, so it's quite difficult to handle. It goes off to the right and up at the same time, sort of diagonally that way, but it's very, very hard to handle. And I know myself, only new to first-person shooters on PC using a keyboard and a mouse, and my recoil control isn't the best. Like, I can admit that honestly, I'm not the best Battlefield player on PC. On console, I'm pretty good. I've played first-person shooters on console for a while, but like I said, branching off into PC now, using the mouse, it's a lot harder to control recoil and things like that, and it's quite difficult for me to handle. Honestly, I don't like the amount of recoil that it has. It's very hard for me to do well with the gun. I can't get the bullets really on target, and I find it quite frustrating to play with, honestly. Me personally, I mean, you might be more experienced, you might have your recoil control more under control, but I don't, and it's quite difficult to play with for me. The first shot recoil multiplier is 3. That's very, very high. Looking at all of the other assault rifles, it's the highest there. So that first shot recoil is quite high, so once you start losing it from that first shot, because it bounces quite high, it's really hard then to pull it back down, and yeah, it's very difficult ultimately. So just like every other assault rifle, it has a max damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18. Now the drop off starts at 8 meters, so it's not very long range. I mean, you're only going to get your 25 damage for the first 8 meters of combat. after that it starts to drop off and it ends at 55 meters. So once you hit 55 meters and beyond, it does 18 damage. So max damage 25, that's a 4-shot kill up in close quarters, just like most guns would do. But as it starts to head out further and further, it drops off a lot more and more. And with the recoil being the way that it is, really hard to not get the gun accurate, because the gun is quite an accurate weapon, we'll get into that later. But it's just really hard to make sure that all of your bullets go where you want them to. So its meters per second is 580, and fairly average for an assault rifle. I mean, it comes in sort of at the low end of meters per second, but it's still got a relatively good bullet velocity. Now, it's got a bullet drop of 15 meters squared, just like every other assault rifle, so you're not going to lose too much in terms of bullet drop. It's going to go quite a way, and you'll be able to hit your target by pretty much aiming on top of them. You don't really need to adjust and allow for the bullet drop. And the max distance of the weapon is 870 meters. So it has a mag size of 31, just like most of the other assault rifles. Some of them have less, but pretty much like the rest of the assault rifles, it has a mag space of 31. Now reload times, a short reload 2.3 seconds. Again, fairly average amongst most of them. There are a couple that have quicker reload times, but some of them have quite a substantially longer short reload time. So 2.3 seconds stacks up pretty good, but yeah, again, you don't want to be in the middle of a firefight or in an open space when you head for that short reload. But when you get to the long reload, again, like when it has no bullet in the chamber, when you're loading a fresh new mag, it's 3.6 seconds. I mean, that is ridiculously long. It's almost the highest amongst all of the assault rifles, and you're certainly going to want to be around a certain or a substantial bit of cover and somewhere where you know that no one's going to come anywhere near you, because 3.6 seconds is a very long time. Now, if you look at the bullet spread, it's got an aim down the sight spread not moving of 0.2 and an ADS spread moving of 1, just like every other assault rifle pretty much. So the bullet spread isn't too bad when you're aiming down the sights. It goes where you need it to. It's fairly accurate as a weapon. Now, when you look at the hip fire spread, again, it's pretty much the same as every other weapon. So accuracy wise, it doesn't do too badly. It stacks up relatively well against most of the other weapons, but that rate of fire, as I keep referring back to, means that it's got a relatively high recoil, and the bullet spread might be relatively small, but the recoil makes it hard to put the bullets where you need them to go. So, concluding the video now, the way that I like to run the weapon and the attachments that I think do best for the weapon. Now, I run most of my assault rifles like this. I don't really play with too many of the other weapons. I haven't experimented with them. I've pretty much stuck to assault rifles on PS3, which is my console, and the PC. Now, I always run with a muzzle brake on the end of the barrel, because I find that reducing the recoil, especially with this weapon, is something that I really need to do. And using the mouse, I'm not the best with recoil control, like I said. So again, reducing that recoil is key, which brings me to the next part of this section, being the underbarrel. I always put an angled grip on there, because combined, that considerably increases your stability and reduces the recoil by a fair amount. So that's what I would run with that part. Now, sights wise, it doesn't really matter what you run. That's up to you. Ultimately, you can do whatever you want with that, whatever you think is going to make you the most accurate. I run with the standard RDS, as you can see in the gameplay, because I haven't unlocked any of the others yet, but I run with that usually anyway. And going as far as underbarrel attachments, I put the laser sight on usually because I feel that hip fire when you're in a desperate situation is quite important. So again, I put that on most of the guns that I use, and it just boosts your hip fire just that little bit, so that when you do come into a sticky situation, really close quarters, it's no time to react, you just got to spam. It makes your bullets that little bit closer, and you might have an edge over your opponent. So that brings us to the end of the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed watching this review of the AEK-971, and I apologize for the gameplay being a bit laggy as well. I recorded in 1080p, and I suppose my computer can't handle that. It's 1080p, medium graphics, and recording, I can play the game fine, but recording it appears to come out slightly framey. So for the next video of Battlefield, I will reduce the resolution a little bit, and hopefully I can bring it to you guys in a lot better quality. But again, I hope you have enjoyed the video, guys. Subscribe, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you guys next time.